Hi there. Welcome to Vegan Earth Day 2019. Burnet Woods Park, Cincinnati, Ohio. As far as we know, this is the second Vegan Earth Day in America. The first one, we believe, was last year in Berkeley, California. And about 10 years ago, there was a Vegan Earth Day in Kyoto, Japan. As far as I know, that's it. I didn't know about those two when I decided to do this one. This actually grew out of a curious situation. There were 3 Earth Day events happening in Cincinnati. 2 of them were kind of corporate in nature. I'm sure they didn't start out that way. And one of them I was working with to try and organize food trucks. Turns out there's about 90 food trucks here in the Cincinnati area. And I was amazed that 18 of them agreed to be vegetarian for the day. So we were going to have vegetarian food trucks at this big Earth Day event called Greater Cincinnati Earth Day. And when I brought this good news back to the food committee, which consisted of myself and 2 other people, they made an odd face and they said, yeah, we don't really think that's a good idea. We think the people who come to this are going to expect to get meat from their food trucks. And if they don't get it, they might leave. And we can't take that chance. And I thought, wait a minute. It's Earth Day. It's Earth Day. We're supposed to be educating people about the best thing they can do, the best things they can do to help the planet. What's best for the environment, what's best for the air and the water and the climate change issues and everything. And it turns out that eating less meat affects almost every area, from deforestation to human hunger, to social inequities, to efficiencies of land use, to especially climate change. There have been studies that have shown, there was one published in World Watch that was done by ecologists for the World Bank back in, it's been a while now, 2009 I think it was. They looked at all the different, what they call anthropogenic causes of climate change. Anthropogenic means human caused. And they determined that meat production, consumption, transportation, deforestation, everything that's involved in refrigeration, in getting meat to consumers, accounted for, you ready for this? 51% of anthropogenic climate change. Well, we've known that for a long time now, a decade. It's 2019 now. But it's a difficult thing for people to wrap their heads around. It almost feels un-American. We're meant to have meat with every meal. I mean, that's who we are, And if we don't, then we're obviously like impoverished or uneducated or something. You're supposed to have meat with every meal. Well, it turns out that that's really not the best way to eat. That's the standard American diet. The acronym for that is SAD, S-A-D. Just worked out that way. So I was in charge of these food trucks. They didn't like the idea of vegetarian food trucks. I said, but we're supposed to educate people. This is, it's just one day out of their lives for the whole year. One meal out of their lives for the whole year to try something different. They might like it. They might go, this isn't so bad, I could do this. And they also might learn about the relationship between your diet and the planet. So one of these says, fight climate change with diet change. And another one says, I'm saving the planet with my fork. And that's really what it's about. It really is about saving the planet with your fork. I want to do another one that says with my chopsticks so that I'm more inclusive. Well, I know these kids. Hi, kids. Hi. Want to be on television? Come on. I think maybe you do. Say hello. Just step in front of me and say hello.
Hi-yo.
Hi-yo. Thank you. So one of the reasons I'm here, in addition to having walked away from this event in the Greater Cincinnati Earth Day and feeling frustrated because they rejected even vegetarian food trucks, was I decided, well, why don't I just create something called Vegan Earth Day, and which was a insane thing to do. It was only about 2 months ago when I had this little brainstorm, and we've tried to turn it into this in just 2 months. Hasn't been easy, but it's been well worth doing. I'm hoping it continues year after year. But one of the reasons I'm here is because 12 years ago, Cincinnati created something called the Climate Protection Action Plan. It eventually changed its name to the Green Cincinnati Plan. And they had all these different task teams. They had waste, they had energy, they had transportation, they had land use, all these different task teams. And I joined one, transportation, and I proposed a locavore recommendation. In other words, let's use transportation to get as much as our food as possible from within 150 miles. I thought that would be beneficial to the planet and especially affecting climate change. And turned out nobody liked that idea. So I went off on my own, again, I do that a lot, and thought about, I'm sure food plays an even bigger picture than just transportation. And it turns out it does. It turns out the transportation of food accounts for about 5% of its climate change impact. 95% of it is what food it is. And that's what I realized, that's what I discovered. I discovered that especially ruminants like cows and goats and sheep, but especially cows, have a lot to do with production of methane. Methane is 30 times more potent a global warming gas than CO2. And methane cycles out of the atmosphere in under 10 years, and CO2 sticks around for 100 years. So it's really important. If we can reduce our methane production, we can cut into the speed that global warming is happening, climate change is happening, much more rapidly than addressing CO2. So I started thinking about it, I started looking into it, and I started coming to these meetings and proposing, why don't we do something about meat? And people thought I was a nutcase. They just thought, this guy, what's he talking about? What does our food have anything to do with climate change, whether I eat a hamburger or not? Nobody got it. Very fortunately, the director of the Office of Environmental Quality, it's now called the Office of Environment and Sustainability, decided to look into the science that I had been talking about. And he came back and he said, you know, the guy's right. We got to do something about food. So the result of that, I researched and wrote it. It was called F1. It was the only food recommendation of 80 plus in the Green Cincinnati Plan, what it was then called. And we became the first city in the world to recommend reduced meat and dairy consumption to curb climate change. And since then, many, many other cities have followed suit, several of them acknowledging Cincinnati's lead in that, which is a funny thing because our history is one of our nicknames was Porkopolis. We are a meat city. So it's ironic, but it's also wonderful. So that found its way into the Green Cincinnati Plan, but before it could be voted on, the Cincinnati Enquirer ran a big editorial that said, there's no such thing as global warming. And even if there is, people don't cause it. And even if they do, we will fight the Green Cincinnati Plan with a hamburger as our shield and a fork as our spear. So you could see which part of the plan they were really ticked off about. It was the one food piece. And it's funny how history repeats itself. Right now, we have a Green New Deal being proposed in Congress, and you hear people crying about, they're gonna kill our cows, they're gonna take away our hamburgers, they're gonna take away our airplanes, you know? And it's the same fear-mongering again. And I must admit, it's not really a laughing matter, but when I heard somebody say, they want to create cow assassination squads, you know? And I thought, well, what do we have now? You know, we have cow concentration camps and slaughterhouses, you know? But anyway, be that as it may, fortunately, Larry Falcon, the head of the OES, stepped up and said, I've looked at the research. This one recommendation would be more powerful than any of the other 80 plus or 90 plus recommendations in the plan short of our local energy supplier, Duke Energy, ceasing to use coal altogether. And they trusted him because they figured he does know his science. He's a professional. I'm just an artist, you know. We got it into the plan passed, and you know, the rest is history. But after a while, not much progress seemed to have been made, while other cities were moving forward and doing more and more things, having meatless Mondays and things. I noticed just last week, New York public schools established meatless Mondays throughout the whole school system and stuff. We still don't have a meatless Monday here. So this is part of drawing attention to that. The very fact that there's something named Vegan Earth Day that makes that connection between diet and the planet hopefully gets it into people's heads. So that's what this is about.
It's been a big part of Vegan Earth Animals Day for decades. I won't say how long. I'm John, and I'm still with OSAVE. Not running it. Nobody's ever run it. The person that ran OSAVE was Mary Ann Lederer, and I know you have talked about some. Bill has mentioned and others here. We're dedicating this entire event to her. She would be very excited to see something like this beginning. This is just a beginning here. And I was here earlier. There were quite a few people here, and the timing codes are good. We're just happy that you're all here. And we hope that you'll continue to support us as we do this probably next year.